Hey there, it's meteorologist Jamie Singleton going live here on Instagram and YouTube and all the places that we can go live on, watching a big storm system that'll be moving into the area through the early morning hours of tomorrow. This is going to be a very heavy event area, but there's also going to be strength brought down as this storm system moves in. Now, not concerned about severe weather overly with any type of discrete supercell activity. That will not be the case this time. It is primarily going to be a heavy rain event. So you can see that on the radar now, we already have rain that's reached a good part of the area through a good part of Virginia, right up against the Roanoke Valley. Moderate rain now back across southwest Virginia and the West Virginia, and we've got more of that through the Carolinas, where we transition over to a thunderstorm threat down a little bit farther to the south. Now, the upper level part of the system is still way back here. This is a line that's going to solidify here over the next couple of hours and intensify. We can start to see signs of that already in West Virginia. You can see some of the yellows and reds there. So it may not look that impressive right now, but I am looking for about 1 to 3 inches of rain across the area. And most of that is going to fall over the next 6 to 8 hours. So it's going to come down really hard and really fast here for us in terms of rainfall. Here's the water vapor, and you can see a big fetch of dry air on the back side, but of course on the front side of this, you've got relatively a good plume of moisture here. Now, one thing I'm noting is that we've got some tremendous thunderstorm activity with overshooting top seen here in the Gulf of Mexico, and that was over this area earlier today. Now it's moved a little bit farther to the east. That is blocking somewhat the deeper moisture, at least from condensing out here across the east. So that's held down on the rainfall intensity for right now. However, as the night goes on, I expect that this could again become more of a compact area of heavier rain. We'll get a thin line of heavier rain. Right now it's a wide line of just light to moderate rain, but with time we may not get the moisture influx that a lot of the models were seeing, but I do think it's going to rain pretty hard on us here, especially over the next 3 hours or so. The rainfall should really start to pick up. And one of the reasons for that is our low pressure system up here is going to continue digging down from the north to the south, and that pivoting will allow for the upper level winds to separate and become more diffluent, and that will create. So this is a dynamic storm system. It doesn't have a lot of instability with it, but we do have the dynamics in play that will force the heavier rain to develop. So we are concerned because the ground is very saturated, of course, and we've been having rain every few days now. So we are looking at a fair amount of rain coming down already, and any heavy rainfall, we're going to have some problems out there on the creeks and streams and the rivers possibly as well. Now, this is the wind at about 5,000 feet up. This is the low-level jet. It's coming in right out of the south, so we do have moisture transport. It's just being interfered with somewhat by those storms off to the south. But I show you this because any band of heavy rain that comes through tonight will bring some of this wind down to the surface. And so you may see a squall move through where you get pouring down rain in 35 or 45 mile per hour winds. That technically is sub-severe. We need to get to 50 mile per hour winds, or actually 58 mile per hour winds for it to be severe. But you can still get trees, they become, ground becomes wet and they become unstable in a situation like that. Speaking of unstable, let's see how unstable the air is. And we don't have a lot of CAPE to work with. This is basically thunderstorm fuel. Values under 250 are very low. We don't get that until we get back here across the Gulf of Mexico, where the values are around 1 to 2,000 joules per kilogram. Now, this is just a overall indicator. Any CAPE will give you thunder, so we are going to have some thunder tonight embedded within the rainfall, but we're not going to look at a tremendous severe threat because we just have limited amounts of moisture combining with the instability. So it's primarily moisture that's coming in and being consolidated. As we take a closer look here from the dynamics here, you can see that line now of some very heavy rainfall now starting to develop in northwest North Carolina, going in through Bluefield, West Virginia, up around Beckley. And we've got some patches here, some very heavy rain, even in western Franklin County, as the dynamics with this system are indeed coming into play as we've been looking at over the past couple of days. So very heavy rainfall will be the issue, and that's going to be primarily again through the night tonight. It'll be peaking in many areas around midnight and then continuing very heavy for the next several hours after that. Here is a look at some of the modeling that look at some of the short range modeling that I'll look at off the Storm Prediction Center site. And this model is a little bit old, but you get the idea. I'm going to go to our newer one in just a second, but you've got that thin line that develops here, and this is going to slow down as it moves east. So it does move east, but it's not moving nearly as fast as it was earlier today. And again, that's because up at the jet stream, let me show you this. What's happening is that's our disturbance here. It's starting to combine with other swirls within itself. So what it's doing is it's closing off and it's digging. I'm showing you this jet stream through tomorrow and into Friday. And you can see that it's still over us, the upper level part at about 18,000 feet. It's still over us Friday. But we're not going to have the continuous rain like we are tonight. So this is the initial fetch of moisture. That'll be the heaviest rain coming through right now. But I just wanted to show you that in the upper levels, one of the reasons why it's going to become so intense tonight is because it's really only getting started in terms of energizing itself in the upper levels. And you can see here, after all this is said and done, spotty showers. This is the recipe for partly sunny skies and some thunder showers that pop up with some small hail in them. This will be Thursday going into, again, Friday afternoon, before we have a nice weekend on the way. This is off Allison House Maps. This radar, future radar here off the HRRR, is going to look more intense because that's their color palette, but it gives you a good idea of, you can see things clearly anyway. So if we go through the next several hours here, you've got that heavier band that's already starting to develop, and this may be speeding up some too, so the model may be behind by a couple of hours, but just to give you the general idea here as we go, let's see, this is valid in another 4 hours or so at 3Z off of what I had here. So this would be you in here. You can see very, very heavy rainfall. And again, within this line here, you could see but within that line, you're going to see a lot of rainfall, obviously, and some stronger winds too, showing up here off the HRRR. And as we advance this into 4Z, which is going to be around midnight, you can see that it's right up against the Roanoke Valley. And look at this strong line of very, very heavy storms that will probably be developing in northwest North Carolina if this model is correct by midnight. Then as we go to 1 a.m., it starts to really start to move east here, gets into the Roanoke Valley area. Again, this is a future forecast product here, but look at all the heavy rainfall. And we've got what could be training areas where the moisture comes in out of the south over the same areas. And this would indeed, if this verifies, give us some flash flooding. No doubt in my mind. And we're going to have some flooding as well. Flood watch is in effect for a good part of the area, most of the area except for south side. So really anywhere needs to be advised of this. Now, as we go through the early morning hours, as we get to 2 o'clock, it's this line, if it develops like the model thinks it will be moving east with time. But there is a lot of moderate rain that hangs out behind here. And usually with a system that's digging like that, you can see additional lines that want to develop into the early morning hours. So this will be the main line. This may outrun the energy some, and we may see something fill back in behind this. Another thing that may happen that may offset that is if the main line takes over and gets more energized, it could leave a lull in behind that. And we do get that sometimes. But the HRRR here has it continuing the rain right up against 4 or 5 a.m. And then as we go through let's see, 5, 6 a.m. Starts to shift into eastern Virginia, but still a lot of rainfall on the backside through 460 here between Roanoke and Lynchburg, and finally starts to see it wind down here. Although that won't be the official end of any rain, but it'll be the end of it in the NRV by around sunrise tomorrow. I think in the Roanoke Valley area, it's over by maybe 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning. But just from Raleigh all the way into, you see that line still showing up on the modeling there, moving a little bit farther to the east there. So these storms may get going here across eastern North Carolina. We'll have to watch that potential as well if they become more discrete. But that's a look at the modeling there. Go back to my tabs here, and I want to show you, this is the 3-kilometer NAM. I don't show the 18Z because the 6 and 18Z runs don't take into account the weather balloons, and because they aren't launched but twice a day unless there's something really big going on. But we've got, I want you to pay attention to the overall view here, which shows up to 1 to 2 inches of rain for most areas. However, the high-res NAM is really good at picking out our topography, and you've got southeast winds at the surface that'll be hitting the Blue Ridge Mountains tonight. Already it's happening. So that's going to ring out another 1 to 2 inches of rain in those areas. So it will be enhanced, this rainfall. So there are values here that are showing up, and usually, from what I've noticed, these tend to be very accurate off the high-res NAM. But you got in Carroll County up against Floyd and Franklin County, you've got enhanced areas that could be up around 3 or 4.5 inches tonight. And that'll be up around the peaks of Otter as well. Nelson County, your traditional upslope areas where that wind hits the mountains and it's forced up into the air, it rings out that extra water. So a good 1 to 2 inches, probably up to 3 plus in the higher terrain there as you get up against the eastern slopes of the mountains. I mentioned the wind at 5,000 feet. This is a model forecast now. As we go to 6Z, which is about 2 a.m., you've got some incredible wind here, about 75 miles per hour at 5,000 feet. If we had more instability, we'd really be worried about severe weather, but I do think we're going to have a gusty squall come through here. And again, just tremendous moisture transport coming in here behind or with the rainfall. That'll be raindrops dragging that wind back down to the ground. Here is the actual radar right now, and the heaviest rains occurring in Wilkes County, Allegheny County, North Carolina, also Raleigh County and western Mercer County. And again, we've got spotty moderate rain showers occurring in western Franklin County. So this is kind of priming the soil for the heavy band once it develops. And there's also a flood advisory that's also out already for the Abington, Bristol area down through Johnson City, Tennessee, Carter County, Unicoi County. That's a problem as well. One more model I'll show you here. This is the HRRR version 4 experimental model, and I think this is about the same thing I showed you earlier, but maybe a little bit different. But you can see much the same here going through 2 a.m., 3 a.m. It's still raining very, very hard. Let's look at the latest HRRR. This updates every hour, and this shows the line getting here maybe a little sooner. But again, within that, we're going to have, and around it, we're going to still have a fair amount of rain moving through the area. Some very high totals expected there as well. If you look at the total precip off the HRRR, you've got amounts well over 1 inch. But within that, you've got to look at these other places here. 3.2 inches of rain right up against the parkway there. So near the Blue Ridge is your best chance of seeing the really crazy amounts, unfortunately. So it looks like, it's going to be a long night, a lot of rain coming, and a lot of that's going to occur in a short amount of time, centered around midnight tonight, going into the early morning hours, which brings me to another point. If you're out traveling, if you have to be up early in the morning, you're going to want to watch out for any debris on the roads, any flooding of low spots, and it's very hard. A lot of the flood deaths we see come at night because people don't get a good idea of the fact that water is a lot deeper than it looks, or that there's water on the road to begin with, because water can be very hard to spot at night. So our QPF here off the Weather Prediction Center does show the bullseye over our area, western North Carolina and southwest Virginia here, up to, again, locally up to 3 inches of rain plus. Excessive rainfall outlook Obviously, it's in that risk of slight where we've got that lines up right with where the local weather services offices, forecast offices, put out the flood watch that's in effect across the area through the morning hours of tomorrow. Precipitable water, this is how much water is in the atmosphere, and you compare that to normal and you get these values here. Values that are jumping up to about 200% of normal. I've seen it higher. I've seen it up to 400% of normal. So this could be higher, but whenever you do get rainfall of about or the capability for rainfall to go to 200, 250%, even 300% of normal, as it will by after midnight tonight. That's in the blue areas, in the brighter blue. Those events are linked to flash flooding events and flooding events across the area. Luckily, it doesn't, at least this part of it, the really heavy river of moisture does not last incredibly long, but you can see little spikes that come off the back of this after the main line comes through. So again, we may have redevelopment throughout the night. Tonight, it's just going to depend on what's happening now and how everything comes into play. But again, it's a very dynamic system, and it's going to have a lot of heavy rain with it. So that's a look at everything right now. This is the current moisture transport. These are vectors, so it's highest right now, moisture-wise, 850 millibar winds. We're moving in a lot of high moisture content here out of the south across Southwest Virginia, where there probably over the next couple of hours be some flooding issues. I'll be here through the night watching this for you. Just expect a wet night and be advised roads are probably going to become flooded in the low spots, and you may see some strong wind in there. Well, be careful, everybody.